The Skull and Bones Society is founded in 1832 by 15 seniors at Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut. They establish a secret society with rules and rituals that remain unchanged to this day.
Well, secrecy has always been extremely important to Skull and Bones, but there's been a schizophrenic kind of aspect to it. For instance, throughout the early 1900s, the New York Times would often publish, sometimes on the front page, the names of the new Skull and Bones initiates. And the Yale class books would, up until the 1960s, publish the names of each class of Skull and Bones. Still, even though their identities were known, what they did inside the tomb was still supposed to be top secret.
The tomb is the Skull and Bones Clubhouse, a 3-story, almost windowless brownstone on High Street.
When I was an undergraduate, and I lived next to it, it's a very spooky kind of place, and you could project all sorts of fantasies about what sort of spooky and horrific things were going on inside, just from the sense it gave of the intimidating kind of aura it had.
10 years after he graduates in 1968, Ron Rosenbaum sets out to penetrate the confines of this secret society.
You would hear all sorts of stories about the initiations that went on, the kind of horrific psychodramas that they would put the initiates through. You were supposed to be able to hear screams, blood-curdling screams coming out of the tomb of Skull and Bones. And there were tales of strange sexual confession encounter groups, guys lying naked in coffins, wrestling in mud piles.
Rosenbaum attempts to interview the Bonesmen themselves, but most refuse. Instead, he gathers information from people close to the members, particularly girlfriends who have been given secret information, and some of whom have even been allowed inside. They describe an interior with all the trappings of a late Victorian Gothic fantasy. There is heavy, dark furniture, medieval armor, animal heads, and everywhere there are skulls and bones, including a skeleton bonesmen call Madame Pompadour.
If you listen to what people have said who've had some experience of that secret society, the Skull and Bones, it is more than just a talking shop. It involves the worship of the skull.
A number of reports say that there are niches with human skulls, and whose skulls they are. They're supposedly the skulls of famous people, and there's one skull that was labeled the skull of Geronimo. The reason why skulls and bones figure so prominently in it is a kind of strain of imagery that dates back to Masonic societies in Germany, in which it was important for a youth to contemplate his death.
The Skull and Bones initiation ceremony is said to be held in April in the tomb's basement. One distinguished member serves as master of ceremonies. Once enrobed, he is known as Uncle Toby. The shortest senior is appointed Little Devil and dons a satanic costume. A bonesman with a deep voice is dressed as Don Quixote. Another is dressed as the college's founder, Elihu Yale. Still another is given papal vestments. It would all be rather funny if it weren't for the fact that among the former bonesmen are 3 presidents: William Howard Taft, George Bush, George W. Bush, numerous senators and ambassadors, industrialists like William Whitney, CIA agents, State Department officials, and the publishing magnate Henry Luce.
For close to 2 centuries, Skull and Bones has produced the stewards and leaders of the American ruling class, the Eastern establishment, elite core of diplomats, spies, Supreme Court justices, senators, presidents.
The Skull and Bones Society seems to be particularly important for bringing American elite bloodline young people into the web and being initiated into the web.
I see the Skull and Bones people as, in effect, the people who created the American character, and they had their character formed in the basement of this strange tomb of Skull and Bones.
The reason that it is so secret is because if the people of America realized what its elite presidents of the future get up to, they'd realize that they live in anything but the land of the free.
Reports indicate that within the tomb, bonesmen operate on Skull and Bones time, which is 5 minutes ahead of the time in the rest of the world, which is referred to as barbarian time. Every Thursday and Sunday at 6:30, they gather for dinner in the Firefly Room. Non-alcoholic drinks are served in skull-shaped cups. Skull and Bones is a dry society.
Thursday night is a sort of general autobiographical session in which in the basement of the tomb, in the presence of all this occult Masonic ritual of skeletons and coffins and death's heads and all these sort of things, someone spills the secrets of his life or tells the narrative of his life. But then on Sunday, there's a special session that is given the name Connubial Bliss. And in that session, it's a sexual autobiography. It's hard to imagine George Bush, the former president, chattering away about his early sexual experiences. Nonetheless, one feels that he has to have gone through it. It was required of the society.
Absolute secrecy is also required. In his 1999 autobiography, George W. Bush devotes just one sentence to his membership in Skull and Bones. Quote, "My senior year, I joined Skull and Bones, a secret society so secret, I can't say anything more." The secrecy, according to some researchers, is there to protect the fact that Skull and Bones funnels its initiates into positions of power and influence. In 1977, for example, George W. Bush forms his first company, Arbusto Energy, with the help of several Bonesman investors.
Skull and Bones is a lifelong society, an old boy network. It's a way for members of the establishment to nurture, advance, promote people who think like them, people who belong to the same kind of class, the same kind of elite culture. And so its power grows in a way after one graduates.
This is no old boy network. This is no, I'll pat your back, you pat mine. This is not, oh, you got the same tie as me, so we're okay. This is a vicious group of interbreeding bloodlines seeking to impose their will and their structure of life upon the global population.
My feeling is that Skull and Bones is less a conscious conspiracy, less a cabal than a kind of unconscious community of interests that people who have power in American society tend to gravitate together. A lot of conspiracy theorists take, what I thought was a kind of complex, nuanced view of how power works in America and paint a more lurid picture of a kind of, one world conspiracy.
When we continue, Conspiracy's Unholy Three, the three secret societies where the elite go for postgraduate studies in global domination.
The actions that these secret societies have propagated through the last century or so have only led to wars, rebellion, dissension, depressions.
Each new member of Yale's Skull and Bones Society is given a secret nickname, supposedly known only to his fellow bonesmen. George W. Bush reportedly goes by the nickname Temporary. History's Mysteries will continue here on the History Channel.